Hi, my name is Finola Hackett. I'm a resident doctor working with the 19toZero team, and thanks for watching our video to learn more about COVID vaccination and hopefully answer some of your common questions. So, first of all, why consider these vaccines at all? Well, there's a lot of good reasons. Number one, the vaccine is the only way that we can end this pandemic and get back to normal life, and our societies and economy can open up again fully. Secondly, getting a vaccine will help to protect the community, people around you, especially those most at risk of sickness and severe outcomes from COVID. And lastly, to protect yourself, your own health, the health of the people in your family, your friends, and the people around you. And these are all really good reasons to consider the vaccine. So we'll start talking a bit more about the specific vaccines now. The messenger RNA or mRNA vaccines were the first ones that came out. This includes the Pfizer-BioNTech and the Moderna vaccines. And what the mRNA is, it's like a recipe or a blueprint that teaches the cell how to make the spike protein, which is a unique protein that is harmless, that is found on the outside of the COVID virus. So once your body reads this recipe, mRNA, it will make the spike protein, which is harmless in our body. And then once that's in your body's immune system recognizes the spike protein and builds antibodies and immunity against it. And that's how these vaccines work. Because it's a one-way street, messenger RNA can be used to make proteins, but it can't go back the other way and be changed into DNA. Our bodies just don't have the tools or machinery to take messenger RNA and take it into the nucleus of the cell and change DNA. It's just not possible. So this mRNA is quite unstable, and after a day or so, it disintegrates. And so it's really just that blueprint or messenger, that recipe gets ripped up and doesn't have any impact on your cell's DNA.
So our first question is, was the vaccine too rushed?
That's a really good question, Claire, and I think I've heard it quite a few times. And it certainly feels rushed. We're not used to having vaccines so quickly. But the short answer is no. The vaccine trials used for COVID vaccines were much larger than previous vaccine trials. We had many tens of thousands of participants across the world. And the Canadian National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, the same body that approves all of our other vaccines, used the same process to approve these vaccines as they would normally. They didn't skip any safety or approval steps. So why did this happen so quickly? Well, millions and billions of dollars were poured into research with the top scientists in the world dedicated to finding this vaccine for the last year. Monitoring, so instead of waiting for the data from trials to all be completed before looking at it, Health Canada was reviewing data as soon as it came in. And of course, priority, because this was the biggest, most urgent issue of our time. And so there was no steps of papers waiting on desks or emails waiting in inboxes for committees and approval. All of the administrative steps, those rubber stamping, red tape types of steps, those were accelerated, but the actual safety and medical steps were not skipped. So a quick analogy, we're used to waiting 5, 10 plus years to get new vaccines. So of course, a year or less than a year feels rushed, but there's other things that we're used to waiting for that might feel rushed. So if you had really bad knee or hip pain and went to see your doctor, you might expect that if they referred you to see a surgeon to get a joint replacement, it could take 1, maybe even 2 years just to get in to see the surgeon. But if they actually saw you that same evening, they were able to fit you in, and then the surgeon says, oh, instead of putting you on a wait list for a whole year, I'm going to book you in for the OR tomorrow, and let's replace this knee. I think that would be a little unnerving to some people because it's just not what we're used to. But if the paperwork is done and everything is medically following the same steps, there isn't anything medically unsafe. And so that's kind of how it's been with these vaccines. We're not used to it going that quickly, but none of the medical safety steps were skipped. So the specific vaccines, the messenger RNA ones, Pfizer and Moderna, they all require 2 doses and are very effective both at preventing symptomatic disease, but especially preventing severe disease and hospitalization. Because messenger RNA is unstable at room temperature, that's why it doesn't stay in your body very long. It also can't be stored in regular fridges, so it needs ultra cold freezers to store it. And that limits a little bit the locations and places in which the vaccine can be given. But as I mentioned, these are very effective vaccines. In terms of the newer ones that have come out in the last month or so, they work a little bit different. So instead of using the messenger RNA to carry that info to make the spike protein, they use a harmless viral vector. Imagine it like the cold virus or some kind of virus, but it's inactive. It doesn't actually cause a cold or cause any illness. It's a messenger that carries that information that goes into your body, and then that information teaches your body to make the spike protein, and you build the immunity in a similar way to the messenger RNA vaccine. This vaccine, includes the Johnson & Johnson or AstraZeneca vaccines. They can be given in 1 or 2 doses, 2 doses for AstraZeneca, 1 dose for Johnson & Johnson. And just like the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, they're very effective at preventing severe disease, hospitalization, ICU, death, all the things we worry about. And one big advantage is that they can be stored in regular fridges at not so cold temperatures as the other vaccines. And this is really helpful for distributing to clinics and pharmacies and getting more shots out to more places. So the latest numbers here show that in the range of 60 to 65 to 80% protection from any disease. That includes just a runny nose, sore throat, mild COVID, but very high protection against severe disease for these vaccines. So side effects from the vaccine, there are no common dangerous side effects caused by the vaccines. If there had been, these would have been seen in these very large trials that were done, and they were not, and that's why these vaccines were approved and considered safe for use. The most common side effects are a sore arm where you had the vaccine injected, sometimes a bit of redness or swelling around that site, and then some people get mild flu-like symptoms. That might include muscle aches and pains, a bit of a headache or fatigue for up to 2 days. It's not possible to actually get COVID or any other infection from the vaccine. Now, it's possible that one might get more severe symptoms or longer lasting symptoms around the time they get the vaccine. And that could either be by getting exposed to COVID and not having immunity yet because it takes some weeks for immunity to develop, so you're not protected right away, or being exposed to some other virus or bacteria that makes you sick around the time you got the vaccine. However, it's not possible for the vaccine itself to give you a more severe infection. So if you do get more severe symptoms or symptoms that last more than a couple days after the vaccine, you should consider seeing a doctor, getting a COVID test, getting it tested for things other than the vaccine that might be causing you to feel ill. But most people's side effects from the vaccine are quite mild and pass within a couple days. There are a few people who are not eligible for the vaccine, people who have a history of severe allergic reactions to vaccine ingredients or anaphylaxis. It's safe to get the vaccine if you have a history of anaphylaxis to something else, say bee stings or peanuts or eggs. So it's safe to get the vaccine if your reaction is not to a specific ingredient in the vaccines. If you visit the Health Canada website, you can find info on all the vaccines and their ingredient lists, which do not contain the common allergens. There isn't one that contains eggs or soy or nuts or any of those products. So generally, most people with severe allergies can still get the vaccine. Everyone is monitored for at least 15 minutes after immunization so that any reaction can be treated immediately. If you have a history of severe allergies, we recommend considering waiting for up to 30 minutes just to make sure that you don't have any reaction. Of course, we don't recommend getting 2 vaccines around the same time. And we also don't have approval to use the vaccines in children yet, but there are trials ongoing on that. And if you're sick for any other reason, whether it's COVID symptoms or some other illness, of course, you should wait until you recover before getting the vaccine. So in terms of children, right now, there are a lot of trials going on around the world in younger and younger populations and age groups looking at the vaccine. We should have results from this research by fall 2021 and into the winter. So right now, it's only those age 16 plus who can get the vaccine. However, because it's been so effective in adults, this is promising for kids, and also kids who are at lower risk of severe outcomes from COVID. So that's another reason that we're getting adults vaccinated first. So thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you learned something and had some of your questions answered. If you can share this info with other people, you can be a role model by considering getting the vaccine and doing all the other practices we do to keep each other safe. We can all bring COVID-19 down to zero together.